guests, ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention please? Today, our forum will commence in a few minutes, so kindly ask you to make your way into the hall and take your seat. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Korea Institute for International Economy Policy, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to everyone for joining us on today's forum. My name is Won-bin Park, Deputy Director of KIEP Delhi Office, and I'm honored to be your moderator for today's forum. We'd like to discuss the present and future of the critical mineral supply chain. To officially open the forum, we'd like to invite have Dr. Jo Chung-jae, Director of KIEP Delhi Office, to deliver of the opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Jo with a warm round of applause.
Distinguished guests, speakers, panelists, and the participants from India and Korea, 안녕하십니까? Namaskar. Very good morning. Very welcome, and thank you all for joining 5th Korea-India Future Economy and Industry Forum on critical mineral and rare earth corporations. I'm very pleased we all discussing this important topic together today. Recently, we felt supply shock from the Strait of Hormuz closure. In March, April, and May, the Brent crude oil prices rose more than 50% compared with February of this year. The more countries depends on Middle East energy, and the smaller its the strategic reserves, the greater the risk. However, I think the supply risk for critical mineral and rare earths can be even larger than the recent crisis of Hormuz Strait, because the most countries, including Korea, India, Japan, United States, Australia, countries in Europe, and the rest of all the countries rely heavily on a single supplier. We all know which country that is. Strategic stockpiles for these minerals are still very small. Currently, it is impossible to manufacture the batteries without cobalt or lithium, or permanent magnet without rare earths. This high precarious supply chain situation is reality. And if supply chain is closed, there is no way to avoid it in the short terms. That is why many countries are making critical minerals a priority and seeking bilateral and multilateral cooperations. However, so far, concrete results are limited. The Korea-India Summit include cooperations across the whole critical minerals value chain. Korea and India are natural partners for strong cooperations in many industry fields. India has abundant mineral resources and a large domestic market, and it is advancing a national critical mineral mission. Korea has top-tier manufacturing capacity and advanced materials, parts, and equipment technology. India brings resources and growth potential. Korea brings technology and industrialization know-how. Building a substantial industry ecosystem between the both in this sector will also take time. I hope this forum help us design and start building our shared future supply chain in this critical mineral and rare earths. Thank you again to to everybody to join today's forums. Now I declare the forum open. Thank you.
Your insight with us today to set the stage for today's event. Then, Miss Minister Councillor Chun Eui-jin, Embassy of the Republic of Korea to India, will come forward to deliver a word of congratulatory remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause for Minister Councillor Chun.
Good morning. I'm very happy to join the 5th Korea-India Future Economy and Industry Forum 2026. My sincere thanks goes to Korea Institute for International Economy Policy, KIEP Delhi office, for organizing this timely and valuable forum. Today's discussion is on the future of critical mineral supply chains and the opportunities for Korea-India cooperation. It's an important topic and a very timely one. Before coming here, I asked Director Cho how he chooses the themes for these forums. And he gave me a very interesting answer. He said, the first thing I ask is whether this topic is being discussed enough in Korea or in India. And I thought that was a wonderful approach. Forums like this allow us to think about the future before policies are made. They bring together experts with different perspectives. They create space for open discussions and new ideas. And this is often how good policies begin. I remember the previous KIEP Future Forums on shipbuilding and semiconductors. And those discussions took place before the Korea-India Summit this year. And now, if you look at the April Summit outcome documents, such as leaders' declarations and joint statements, you will find that both shipbuilding and semiconductors are highlighted as important areas of long-term cooperation between Korea and India. So you see, many of these ideas discussed at these forums are reflected in those documents. And this shows how valuable this forum has become, and I'm therefore especially pleased that today's discussion is on critical minerals. This is exactly the kind of issue that deserves more attention. We often focus on today's trade figures and investment numbers, but long-term strategic issues are equally important. Critical minerals are no longer simply an economic issue. They're increasingly being connected to technological development, energy transition, and economic security. So as you know very well that the world is changing rapidly, geopolitical uncertainty is increasing, global supply chains are being reorganized, and the transition to clean energy is accelerating. So as a result, countries are no longer thinking only about cost and efficiency. We are looking for resilience, we're looking for trust, we're looking for supply chains diversity. All these things are equally important. Critical minerals are at the center of this change. Both Korea and India face similar challenges. As Director Cho has mentioned, neither country can depend on a single source of critical minerals, a single source for critical minerals. Both countries need secure, resilient, and diversified supply chains, and this creates an important area and space for cooperation. India has recognized the strategic importance of critical minerals and is working to develop a stronger ecosystem through initiatives such as the National Critical Mineral Mission. And this reflects India's long-term commitment to strengthening capabilities across the critical minerals value chain. Korea brings an important complementary strength. It's a global leader in batteries, semiconductors, electric vehicles, and advanced manufacturing. We also have extensive experience in mineral processing, engineering, infrastructure development, and building globally competitive industries. Our two countries are also working together in the broader international community. Both Korea and India participate in initiatives such as FORGE, Forum on Resource Geostrategic Engagement, and PAC-SELECA, which aim to strengthen resilient and trusted supply chains for critical minerals and strategic technologies. there is also strong potential to build on the foundation that already exists. More than 700 Korean companies are currently operating in India, creating valuable networks and experience between our two economies. I think we'll have to face the truth here that we do not have much in concrete in terms of critical minerals cooperation as of now. But looking ahead, we can explore how Korea's advanced technology and manufacturing capabilities can complement India's growing critical minerals ecosystem. This could include cooperation in areas such as mineral processing and refining, research and development, technology partnerships, and collaboration between Korean companies and Indian manufacturers. Korea and India each bring different strengths, and we both have strong policy commitments, growing industrial base, and clear vision for developing and securing our critical minerals ecosystem. Together, this strength can contribute to supply chains that are more resilient, diversified, and competitive. I hope today's discussion will generate practical ideas and new opportunities for cooperation, and just as earlier KIEP forums help us understand and open new pathways for cooperation between Korea and India. And of course, identify areas where Korea and India can work together in the years ahead in important fields like critical minerals cooperation. Thank you very much. Dhanyabad.
Thank you, relations. We will now take a short break for group photos. May I invite our distinguished speakers and honored guests to the front for the group photo. We kindly request the named guests and speakers come forward to the stage to take a photo. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Please take your seat, and we kindly ask for your attention as we begin. Now, it is my honor to introduce Mr. Suresh Babu Muttana, Director of Climate, Energy and Sustainable Technology Division of DST. He is going to talk about India's critical mineral vision, building resilient supply chains for the future. Please welcome him with a warm round of applause.
Thank you, KIEP, for inviting me to this important conference on critical minerals. And I will be going through a 15 minutes presentation to give an overview of government aspirations and Indian government aspirations, and then initiatives taken by Government of India, and then the need for developing critical mineral ecosystem within the country. We all know that our Prime Minister have already set targets for industry to work towards achieving energy transition, and the main goal was to install 50% of renewable energy capacity in the country, and also emission intensity of GDP to reduce by 45% by 2030, and also and projected carbon emissions to reduce by 1 billion tons from now to 2030, and ultimately to achieve net zero 2070. When we look at these nationally determined contributions, our aim is to meet 50% India's energy requirement from renewable energy, and to reduce projected carbon emissions by 1 billion tons. And then the last one is 30% electric by 2030. And then by 2047, we want to become energy independent, a developed nation, and by 2070, net zero. And when we look at government initiatives, several governments are involved in doing several important activities in this energy transition. The Ministry of Heavy Industries, we all know that they are at forefront, especially when it comes to automotive industry. Initially, FAME 1 and FAME 2 was introduced, and later Advanced Cell Chemistry PLI scheme was also introduced, and later, and then PM E-Drive, and then a ministry is also working towards establishing test facilities in addition to what has been there in the country. And then MNRE has come up in a big way in supporting grid scale energy storage systems. And then my own department, Department of Science and Technology, we have come up with the electric vehicle mission and also smart grids program, and also we also supporting EV startups program, where there are so many 3,000 startups are there in the country, and we have been supporting these startups through this program. And Ministry of Mines, we all know, today we gather to discuss this National Critical Minerals Mission. And then MOEFCC, they have been working on battery waste management rules. And then BAS has been working in standards. And then Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, they are working on model bylaws, especially to bring in various bylaws to accommodate electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And ultimately, EESL, BE, and CEA, they're all working together to achieve this goal. When we look at EV sector as a whole, there are several challenges that we all know. This slide captures important technology challenges and also resource availability and resource requirement that we need for accelerating in this sector. Especially when we look at the battery, we all know India is mostly dependent on other countries heavily importing raw materials, especially lithium, cobalt, nickel, and manganese, and also manufacturing equipment. In fact, my previous speakers, Mr. Cho and Mr. Chon, they mentioned that Korea has their own strengths in developing equipments and also technology. And then manufacturing equipment is an important area, and recycling technologies, that we are at infant stage, and a lot of companies are coming forward, and we need to develop technologies which are environmental friendly, and then that can have less impact on human health. And then standards are also evolving, but still we need to do many more. We need to bring many more standards to make it economically viable technologies in the country. And in case of traction motors, rare earth materials are the most important ones, and in fact the country has gone through a lot of ups and downs the last year as there are some geopolitical issues that occurred. And then we see that from when it comes to neodymium, iron boron, and dysprosium, though some minerals are there within the country, but extraction of these minerals and processing them and making them rare earth oxides, and then alloys, and then magnets, all entire value chain is yet to be developed within the country. And then the alternative things government is also looking at is non-rare earth based materials and magnet development, so that we may reduce the dependence on other countries. And recycling of motor materials is also very important. These critical minerals are a great resource for our country. And in case of power electronics, semiconductors, power conversion devices, there is an important element here that government is also taking a lot of efforts in developing conductors within the country. In fact, we have seen in the news also that first set of semiconductors were also displayed. And some of the schemes, as I mentioned in the slides before, the advanced chemistry cell PLI scheme is very important as far as India is concerned, because they have the Minister of Heavy Industry announced 50 gigawatt of ACCs with an outlay of 18,100 crores. And this actually to encourage industries to adopt advanced chemistries, and then these incentives are extended based on the local value addition. Every year you have to bring some new innovation, bring new value to the materials within the battery, and then the beneficiary firms will have to achieve domestic value addition at least 25%, and then make an investment of rupees 225 crores per kilowatt hour within 2 years. And this is a matrix where it covers more or less all mobility as well as stationary batteries, and this is an excellent scheme, and a lot of we are hoping to see fruits from this important scheme. And when it comes to National Critical Minerals Mission, my previous speakers also mentioned, and government is investing almost 16,300 crores, and and expecting some more contributions from public sector units. And the idea is to cover entire value chain end to end, from the mining till recycling, all the technologies, and also intensify exploration of critical minerals both within the country and also from other countries abroad. And also creating a fast-track regulation approval process as well. And then under this mission, government also announced Center of Excellences in different premier institutions across the country, and also announced some investment of 1,500 crores, especially for recycling ecosystem. And as far as DST is concerned, we also have one program on new and emerging energy storage technologies, NEST program. Under this, we were encouraging the industries to come up with locally available materials, and also reduce the cobalt content within the battery, and also make materials which are compatible both for mobility and stationary applications, the locally available materials compatible for these two applications. In fact, these are the chemistries which we have covered: lithium, sulfur, sodium ion, solid state, and lithium ion. And then under Maha EV mission, this was actually launched last year. And then we have also conducted extensive interaction with industries, especially battery, motor, power electronics, and charging infrastructure. And these 4 R&D roadmaps have been developed. And based on these R&D roadmaps, this is an industry-oriented R&D roadmaps. And based on these roadmaps, we have come up with Maha EV mission. The goal is to develop indigenous products within the country and to establish a robust supply chain, so that the industries can produce products within the country, and also promote research in EV materials, whether it is battery materials or motor materials or power electronics based materials. And this is a startup program which I mentioned, and we are actually here to support if suppose a startup is having a proof of concept or prototype at TRL level 3, which is proven at laboratory, and we try to help them to translate this into commercially viable product to reach TRL level 6 to 8. And then under this scheme, we have covered a good amount of focus areas for developing the materials. We can see anode active materials, cathode active materials, separators, binders, all entire gamut of the battery materials and motor materials, and material circularity has been encouraged. At the same time, in motor side also, rare earth based, non-rare earth based motors, and then thermal management, all these issues have been covered. And when we look at the technology landscape across the world, we see that there is a transition from LFP, from initially it was started with NMC graphite, LFP graphite, and slowly it has been moved to silicon blended graphite, and then in case of NMC, high NMC, and then in case of LFP, manganese has been injected, and then the transition is moving and more silicon has been added in case of anode, and then sodium ion is emerging in a big way, especially in India, and then solid state is the futuristic, and then a lot of work is happening, and then later we will move on to lithium metal based batteries. Why I showed this slide is that how we are progressing, and then what kind of materials requirement will be there within the country. And then this is what that slide shows, that some of them are mature technologies, some of them are not yet fully commercialized. And then when we want to scale up, then there are a lot of challenges. I think many experts are sitting here who knows better than me, and we can see that for 100 gigawatt hour capacity plant, we actually need a cathode active material close to 193,000 tons per annum, and then anode active material 98,000 tons per annum, aluminum. So this is a rough estimate of materials requirement if you want to establish 100 gigawatt hour capacity plant. And looking at the demand, by 2032, we may expect around 236 gigawatt hour capacity battery materials are required. And then you can you can say that double of these materials requirement will be there in future by 2032. So we need to work backwards to see that how we can address, how we can meet these requirements, either from domestic resources or from having tie-ups with other countries. And a good thing is that India is coming up with many battery cell manufacturing facilities. In fact, they are the forerunners. Amar Raja, Exide, and Toshiba, Densho Suzuki is already there. And then even Tata Motors, Agratas Energy, Reliance, Ensure, Nash Energy, Lucas TVS, and War Energy, all these companies, they announced their plans for establishing, and some of them have made significant progress, and we can see that in the coming years these companies will be operational, and then we can see that India can produce their own lithium-ion cell very soon. And especially when it comes to battery reuse and recycling, there are a lot of challenges because this is an unorganized sector. And then data management is a key issue, because after the use of the battery, the spent batteries, how do we dispose? So that is a big challenge, and then tracking those batteries where they are, and then creating a system where actually these batteries can be safely transported to different places for either for secondary applications or for dismantling. And then some of these batteries, when we want to go send it for the repurposing, we must know that how much of remaining useful life is there within the battery. And then all these challenges are actually very important to ensure that there is a smooth way of disposing of without impacting the environment and human health. And then keeping this in mind, even Government of India is thought of bringing a battery passport. This is one of the recommendations came up when we worked on R&D roadmap on tropical EV batteries. This particular battery passport is very, very important, right from the mining till recycling at different stages. How do you capture the data? And then this data, how you keep it securely, and not to share with any third party, but to share based on agreement between the parties, and utilize them for enhancing the business, and also to bring regulatory norms so that if any inferior material comes from outside can be traced, and then within the country we will know that how these critical minerals can be secured and after recycling and after processing. So this is what actually is the plan. And within the battery Aadhaar, we will see battery origin, materials composition, and how it was used, its performance, and then recycling information, end of life, and carbon footprint. So this data is useful, as I mentioned, for regulatory purpose, and also not only that, even for the business purpose. A lot of businesses can be generated out of this data. And also after sales vehicles, how do you value those vehicles? Suppose I want to sell my electric vehicle to some other person after using for some years. How that person knows that my vehicle is in good condition, then how much value it can, we can determine for that particular vehicle. So battery Aadhaar data will be useful for the insurers and also for the resale of the vehicles, and lot of other applications. Even battery swapping also can come under this. So this is the digital framework of battery Aadhaar, and these are the inputs. We can say that from the mining, from the cell manufacturing, from the battery OEM, from the EV OEM, and those are the right side. You can see that how that data can be utilized by general public, consumers, and reuse and recycling companies, and finance companies, energy network, and all that. And the last two slides, at the same time, the recycling technologies are also very important. And then conventionally, we know that hydrometallurgy and pyrometallurgy is well known, and mostly hydrometallurgy is used. But there are a lot of efficiency improvement and then ensuring the less emissions. These are all important areas, and also direct recycling is also emerging in a big way. And we need bilateral cooperation in developing technologies which are efficient, which can consume less energy and less water, and then bring less impact on environment. And then this is the last slide, last but one slide. The DST's roadmap for battery research covers most of the things which I spoke in my previous slides. So whether it is long-term technologies when it comes to battery chemistries, and short-term technologies, and raw material security, and then material innovations, and that is new equipment development also, and then last one, end-of-life batteries as well. And in conclusion, energy storage is crucial for energy transition, energy shift, not only for EVs, not only for grid-scale battery energy storage systems, but data centers are coming in a big way, and telecom towers as well. And the government's priority is to empower Indian industries and community to develop indigenous products, technologies through various schemes and programs. And then as I mentioned, that India is coming up with several battery cell manufacturing facilities within the country, and the main aim is to establish a robust supply chain of critical materials within the country through recycling, and also having strategic partnership with different countries, and also developing materials and technologies which are efficient for its use in this ecosystem. And in this regard, bilateral cooperation with countries like South Korea is very, very important, because you carry a lot of wealth in different areas, and then both India and Korea can exchange the merits and then address the issues efficiently. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. I try to discuss the current status, future prospect, and policy direction of India critical mineral ecosystem. So I'm honored to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Kirti Varma, co-founder Ultramin. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
A lot of new faces, so let me just take a step back and run you through what we as Altmin do. We started in 2018-19 with the idea of securing lithium into the country. As you all know, India has not been blessed with great resources either on the spodumene side or on the brine side. So we started assessing partnerships overseas. With the help of Niti Aayog and Ministry of Mines, we identified that South America was a good opportunity for Indian companies to collaborate and partner with because of the close geopolitical ties. And also African and Australian mines were already tied up with long-term associations with Chinese companies. So initially we had built a partnership with the Bolivian state entity called YLB for securing lithium into the country, as well as a private company in Brazil called CBL, who we continue to work with from the last 7-8 years. In that journey, we were approached by ARCI, Ministry of Science and Technology R&D Institute based out of Hyderabad, where they were developing the cathode active material technology, LFP, LMFP, LTO and others, but they were not having really good success on development of the final product and the technology. This is where we identified a very critical gap, that is the raw material is equally as important as the technology itself for the production of the cathode active materials. And we saw this as a great opportunity to forward integrate, step forward from a lithium trading company into a cathode active material manufacturing company. So initially we had licensed the tech from ARCI. Over the course of the last 5 years, we scaled that up. In 2023, we set up India's first LFP manufacturing facility in Hyderabad. And currently we are in the process of setting up a 20,000 metric ton LFP line in the coming 24 months. With that said, taking one step back, we saw that lithium is going to be a key player or key role in the entire cathode active material value chain. It does not just mean that you produce an ex-China LFP material, you also have to have the supply chain that is built around it. So in our only collaboration so far, we associated ourselves with an Indian company that is one of the largest manufacturers of iron phosphate for food and nutrition grade. That in turn makes us an entirely independent and our own supply chain for both lithium carbonate and iron phosphate. And in that journey, we've had tremendous amount of support from our government. There's also a PLI and a policy being made, like Dr. Suresh sir said, at a components level as well as a refining level. So this lithium project was India's first project that was approved under the MSP. Coincidentally, the South Korean government was the chair of MSP when the project was approved as well. So with that tech background from our partners in Brazil, we are also planning on setting up a lithium refinery in the country, thus making the entire value chain very domesticated. Like Dr. Suresh sir said, if you look at the policy making from a top level, which is an EV, all the way to the mineral itself, you can see that the government's policy is aligned in developing the entire value chain together. So with that said, one of the larger collaborations that we have globally is in the US, UK, and Japan. So we look forward to working more on technical and material collaborations with various Korean institutes and companies as well as we are in the process of developing other critical minerals that are part of the National Critical Mineral Mission as well. So this includes titanium minerals, zirconium minerals, as well as some of the rare earth oxides that go into ceramics, electronics, semiconductors, and other strategic industries. So we look forward to having a good discussion with you post the event as well. Thank you.
The presentation. Next, we will hear from Chaitanya Gupta of Ballroom. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
I'm Chaitanya Gupta. I look after corporate development at Loham, and pleased to be here and sort of talk through how we see the critical minerals challenge and opportunities in India, and how we can collaborate with South Korea for a fruitful partnership. Let me quickly introduce Loham. So before that, actually get into Loham, sorry. Just some basic context setting. So of course, we all know that demand for critical minerals is going to grow. And this is not just an energy transition challenge. It's going to come from sectors like AI, semiconductors, defense, data centers, etc. And given that a lot of this demand is not going to be met just purely by mining and through primary sources, we do see recycling as a big part of that solution. Which is why Loham is developing a very integrated platform, and we're India's largest diversified critical minerals platform. So of course, starting from the right side, our core function is on the recycling side. We do process batteries across various chemistries, including NMC, LFP, and LCO, and extract everything from nickel, cobalt, lithium. Now we're also moving into rare earth oxides, moving into platinum group metals, which I'll talk about in a future slide. What's interesting is that we're moving up the value chain as well. Like I said, the critical minerals challenge does need a more integrated approach. So we're now working towards acquisitions globally across Africa and other geographies to get primary feedstock as well to support our secondary feedstock efforts. So this really makes us a very diversified platform to be able to plug the critical minerals gap that exists today, right? Just some more detail about the kind of critical minerals that we do deal with. A fairly large portfolio that we have that covers most of the elements that India deems critical. I'll talk you through a little bit of some of the more interesting things about this, which is our focus is on lithium, cobalt, and nickel. We're rapidly expanding into rare earths facility. We've set up a pilot facility in Greater Noida, and we're hoping to scale that up into a 5,000 metric tons per annum facility by early next year. We also have a platinum group metals facility down south in Hyderabad, and again, in rapid scales of phase up. And lastly, in terms of, we're also expanding into metals like copper. We've recently had a partnership with Hindustan Copper an Indian public sector undertaking to take over one of their plants that's been that's sort of been shut down for a few years now. We'll be using that to process secondary copper feedstock of about 50,000 tons per annum. Again, some more detail about the kind of materials that we're into. And really, I think the goal for us is to be able to commit to a circular economy mission, right? So to get, of course, primary feedstocks in terms of mines and ores, but also rapidly scale up efforts in terms of scrap metal, in terms of scrap battery material, and be able to process that at a very high purity to plug the gap from both ends. To this effort, we have invested in facilities across the country. We have most of our facilities in Greater Noida, not too far from here, also have facilities for nickel and copper in Gujarat, and for platinum group metals in Hyderabad, in Telangana. A little bit more about our geographic presence in India, and this is what I was referring to earlier in terms of our global expansion, to be able to source mining ores as well, to be able to create a truly resilient critical mineral supply chain. A big part of our effort is to make sure that what we do right now sustains over the long run, and we believe that R&D is an important part of that, right? To be able to not just solve the problems of today, but to be able to foresee the challenges of tomorrow and to be able to innovate on that front, which is why almost 5% of our revenues are dedicated to our R&D efforts. About 5 to 10% of our workforce is also within the R&D segment, and we hire extremely good talent across the country to be able to innovate across all of our business verticals. One of the things that we're truly committed towards is being able to meet global standards on safety, on environmental, social, and governance goals, which is why we've been investing more and more towards these efforts. So that's a little bit of background on what we do and how we fit into the critical minerals landscape. In terms of the South Korea sort of aspect, we do think that an India-South Korea collaboration is a very natural partnership, given the kind of cost advantage that India brings, given the kind of demand base that India brings, as well as the kind of complementary technology talent that South Korea brings, right? We think that South Korea is obviously, with companies like LG and Samsung and others, has been on the forefront of innovation across many of these sectors for a long time now, and we do look forward to technology partnerships in particular in South Korea, in addition to, of course, long-term off-take contracts and other forms of partnership within these two geographies. And we're excited to be able to chat more about this and looking forward to the rest of the discussion. Thank you.
Our program had Dr. Parveen Kumar of WRI. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Good morning, everyone, and let me thank the organizers for the invitation. And in the opening remark, Dr. Cho he has highlighted that why we need to identify the areas for the collaboration and why it's so important, and he has given the example of that. And in keynote address, Suresh ji has highlighted the kind of policy interventions and action government is taking to support this ecosystem and to strengthen the collaboration and partnerships. And my industry, experts from industry, they have highlighted the action they are taking and kind of collaboration and partnerships are evolving. So if I come back to the topic, then you see that India is making significant progress in this transition to low carbon technologies. And this is supported by a very coordinated efforts at the national and subnational level. And we have seen in last 2-3 years that the collaboration and partnerships are evolving at the global level. And the major focus is around the critical mineral side and the technology sharing and the workforce capability development. Because the supply chain, if you take the example of the lithium battery supply chain, the kind of geographical concentration is there for the upstream and midstream. that highlights the urgency of having a diversification of this supply chain rather than going ahead with this current situation of the LIV supply chain, because not in India, across all the different countries, they are moving towards the low carbon technologies, electric vehicle, battery, solar, wind. And this seriously raises the concern if we go with the current status of the supply chain. And if I take example of battery, so in India, the rapid growth of electric vehicles and the adoption of renewable energies are pushing the growth of the battery market. And it is expected that currently from there was almost 25 gigawatt hour of capacity in 2025, and this is expected to increase to over 115 gigawatt hour by 2030. And the cumulative capacity is expected to grow over 600 gigawatt hour by 2030. And this progress presents a multi-billion-dollar opportunity across manufacturing, recycling, and critical mineral supply chain. To support this growth, Government of India is taking a lot of steps at the policy level and also creating, pushing the various efforts to make this ecosystem ready for this transition. And in this, for the upstream, government has announced the critical mineral mission, under which they are supporting research, technology development, and there is a KIEP which is exploring the critical mineral resources overseas, and parallelly government is trying to develop the domestic capabilities on the resource side. On the technology development front, if we see currently the battery industry is in India, they are doing the pack manufacturing, which is strongly depends on the imported cells. But government through the policy is trying to the backward integration of the supply chain. And in this effort, the PLI is the one of the example where they are supporting this. And parallelly, we have seen a very vibrant startup ecosystem is coming in this space. And they are working on the technology development on the upstream side, midstream side, and recycling side. We have seen a lot of efforts. So this provides an opportunity for, as Dr. Cho mentioned, that India is having the workforce and the resource side, a lot of potential is there, and Korea can help in on the technology development, collaboration, transfer, technology transfer, and this collaboration can help in diversifying the critical choke points in the lithium battery supply chain. If I take an example of the rare earths, rare earth is a perfect example. If you look into the history of the rare earth, you will understand why we need to have the diversification of the critical supply chains. And rare earths, in India, we have the presence in the upstream, where IREL is involved in extraction and processing of the monazite for the rare earths, where India is also trying to fill the gap that is exists from metal to magnet. And this offers an opportunity for collaboration between Korea and India to fill these critical gaps. Same time, if we come to the resource side, so circular economy is emerging as in a very important area, not only for the sustainability aspect, but also for the critical mineral resource recovery from the waste stream. So a lot of focus is there on the e-waste processing to recover the critical material. But there is an opportunity on the other resources like ore tailings. If we take an example of the bauxite processing, we get a large amount of red mud. And this red mud contains several critical materials like gallium, scandium, light rare earths, heavy rare earths. But what is happening that this waste is lying and creating a problem for the ecosystem. Can we work together to exploit this and convert this waste into resources to recover these critical minerals? So there is a large opportunities are there for the collaboration and partnerships, especially wherever the critical gaps are there in the supply chain. So I will stop here and will be happy to take questions on.
Of the critical mineral. Thank you, Dr. Pravin Kumar. Then I'm honored to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Dong-Soo Kim from Korea Institute for Industrial Economic and Trade. He will speak on cooperation between Korea and India in critical mineral. He provides pre-recorded presentation due to some network issue. Kindly listen carefully.
Participants. My name is Dong-Soo Kim. I'm working at the Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade. It is a great honor personally to make this presentation at the 5th Korea-India Forum held by the office of KIEP. Today what I'm going to present is the cooperation between Korea and India in critical minerals. Let me share my slide. As everyone knows, the global environment surrounding the critical minerals is changing rapidly. The international community is now facing a monopoly market structure in the supply chain. China has a monopolistic status in the production of refined products, not just in mineral reserves. As you can see the below graph, as of the 2024, more than 90% of rare earths and graphite is supplied by China. This monopolistic structure is creating a more worrisome situation as the strategic competition between US and China has recently intensified. As means of corresponding to strategic competition, export controls critical minerals are openly in place. As shown in the table below, China has recently controlled several critical minerals and smelting and refining technologies too. This control has been accelerated by the decoupling supply chain policies driven by the United States. At the same time, China's export control of rare earth elements in May last year has eventually led to the reintroduction of the European countries' stockpiling system. Now I focus on the cooperation between Korea and India in critical minerals. Let's think about why Korea and India should cooperate in critical minerals. Korea and India have mutually complementary motives for cooperation here. While Korea has competitiveness in the automobiles, batteries, and semiconductor industries, which are downstream of critical minerals. Korea is very big in the field of mineral materials upstream, so securing a stable supply of minerals is very important. On the other hand, India is country rich in mineral resources, but the competitiveness of manufacturing industries is relatively low, and the inter-industry connection is somewhat weak. Therefore, cooperation between the two countries lay the foundation not only for the critical minerals, but also the entire industries. I believe that building trust between the two countries will be the most important prerequisite for this. Let's move on the target of cooperation in the critical minerals. There are three main categories of cooperation between the two countries. The first is complementary cooperation in the critical minerals. Korea needs cooperation in the poor upstream area, while India needs cooperation in the relatively weak downstream areas. Cooperation is needed in the entire circle, from the exploration to mining, and smelting and refining, material processing, even producing intermediate goods such as cathode and anode for batteries, and even recycling. Second, cooperation in the industrial infrastructure for critical minerals in India is necessary and important. Cooperation between the two countries is needed to build an innovative and collaborative network, as well as cheaper and cleaner policy for the development of critical minerals. The third cooperation is needed and important, fostering related industries in India on a more comprehensive scale than critical minerals. Fostering forward industries such as batteries, EVs, and semiconductors, as well as machineries and refined processing, refined chemicals are important areas that drives the demand in the critical minerals. Let's continue to look at the materials, raw materials, minerals that are important in the bilateral cooperation. The Korea and India government selected and announced 33 critical minerals in February and June of 2023, respectively. Korea's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy and India's Ministry of Mine defined and selected critical minerals based on economic importance and supply risk. In Korea, minerals for EV batteries and semiconductors are included in 10 strategic critical minerals. As shown in the figure below, the majority of the minerals were selected as critical minerals in both countries. Minerals that are commonly considered important are the priority target for cooperation. However, since Korea has already exported a significant amount of non-ferrous metals such as aluminum and lead from India, cooperation to expand the smelting facilities in India for those stable supply of base metal is also very important. According to the USGS data, India produces a considerable amount of aluminum smelting products and chromium, rare earths, and zinc ores. In these areas, cooperation to build the supply chain and strengthen competitiveness will be given priority.
For aluminum smelting products and chromium, rare earths.
Now, I will talk about how the two countries will cooperate in critical minerals. First of all, the direction of cooperation between the two countries is strong government engagement. The cooperation should be carried out step by step, and it's supposed to be in the form of joint venture in capital and products. Now, I will talk specifically about the ways to cooperate in the downstream of the critical minerals.
I will talk specifically about the ways to cooperate in the
this table below. It shows the example of global cooperation in critical minerals by POSCO, which is a leading steel company in Korea.
Global cooperation.
For example, an Australian company plans to mine graphite from the Mahenge mine in Tanzania
and send those graphite ores to Korea for POSCO Future M to produce battery cathode materials. Similarly, there is another cooperation in the processing of lithium developing materials with Australian and Canadian companies. In the downstream cooperation of critical minerals, we will take a closer look at them in consideration of the partners. In the case of Korea, as shown in the figure below, the Korea Institute of Geoscience and Mineral Resources, so-called KIEP, is an important key player in the exploration stage, and the Korea Mine Rehabilitation and Mineral Resources Cooperation, so-called KOMIO, is a main player in the development stage. The organizer of this forum, the KIEP and my institute, KIEP, are in charge of policy research for fostering the entire process. In addition, there's a huge amount of private companies, POSCO, Samsung, SDI, LG Group, etc., in refining and material processing, and even the production of intermediate and final products for EV batteries. Of course, there's EV manufacturers such as Hyundai Automobiles and Kia Motors. And in addition, there are several relevant industrial associations such as Korea Iron Steel Association, the Korea Non-Ferrous Metal Association, the Korea Battery Industry Association, etc., etc., and the Korea Mineral Resources Industry Association. Korea and India should be based on the active contact of these key players and the strengthening of their networks in cooperation for downstreaming critical minerals. The second way to cooperate is through joint effort to expand industrial infrastructure. I would like to highlight the industrial infrastructure for critical minerals, such as affordable and clean electricity, efficient transportation and logistics systems, and open innovation networks. Korea and India have representative energy-intensive industrial structures. Absolutely. Both countries had better cooperate to generate the electricity for sustainable or industrial development. Unfortunately, as shown in the below, when looking at the power generation structure in India, it seems that the high proportion of power generation using conventional fossil fuel is bound to increase the burden on environmental pollution. And it seems that we will face a challenging situation due to the efforts of the international community to reduce the carbon emission. The third way to cooperate is to foster related industries, as mentioned earlier. The forwarded industries, which is driving the demand for critical minerals, is very important. For example, even semiconductor industry is suffering from the lack of industries related to the expansion of data centers or artificial intelligence, as well as existing home appliances, personal computers, and mobile phone industries. Unfortunately, it seems that India is currently lacking in manufacturing capabilities. The manufacturing industry accounts for only 13.5% according to the World Bank's World Development Indicator as of 2025. It is quite low comparing with Korea and China, which accounts for 27.4% and 24.7% respectively. Therefore, The forward industry of critical minerals must be developed in a balanced way, not only in the global market, but also in India. To this end, Korea which has a relatively high competitiveness in the manufacturing industry, can be a good partner for India. The figure at the bottom left shows that the key sectors and industrial policy tools of India. In order to develop these key sectors, industrial linkage cooperation with Korea will be a great choice. So far, I have shared my idea for cooperation between Korea and India in critical minerals in the aspect of consensus, identifying the targets and subjects of cooperation, and the ways in which cooperation can be realized. I look forward to deeper interest and concern of the participants and to the substantial extension of cooperation. Thank you very much for your listening and attention. Thank you.
Then we will now move on our panel discussion moderated by Director Chung Jae-jo of KIEP Delhi office. The panel includes on-site presenter of session 1, and they will discuss India's critical mineral ecosystem in terms of comprehensive view.
Director Jo Chung-jae, KIEP Delhi office. Very thank you and very nice to meet you. I think you, within very limited time, you give us very insight speeches for us. I think this is a kind of the first forum related to the critical mineral issues between Korea and India. So it is very big issues and very broad issues. We cannot make anything just one time the forums. But anyway, thank you again for joining today's forum. So we already shared how much important this sector is very critical between Korea and India, as well as in the world countries. I think at this moment, just one country will have some safe. We know which country that is. So anyway, thank you again. And also, at this moment, Dr. Suresh, director of the DST, is leaving. Maybe I think he is very busy to have to join the government meeting. Instead of him, sorry, I appreciate. So now, before the panel discussions, I already checked the pre-questions. In these times, I already have the 42 questions. It's very many questions. So most of the questions are related to the Korean, what kind of Korea has the critical mineral policies and what is a kind of strategies and how to develop the Korea and India to expand the cooperations in this sector like that. So we cannot cover all, but I try to select some questions and also I added my point also. So first, I would like to ask some questions to you one by one, and then you have to think more. So first, I would like to ask related to the government policy. So at this moment, Suresh is leaving, but according to the Indian National Critical Mineral Missions, as far as I know, I already checked the report, so it's right. 67%, nearly 70% of the budget is earmarked for the domestic explorations. So we plan to conduct 1,200 the exploration project by 2030, right? So what kind of the outcomes are anticipated? And are there any the foreign companies currently participating or expressing interest in participating? And also, what is your perspective on the future opportunity for the foreign companies to participate in the explorations and the mine development within the India? I think first you can cover the Mr. Kumar.
So in this critical mineral space, through this National Critical Mineral Mission, Government of India is trying to adopt two approach. One, like developing the domestic capabilities and exploiting the domestic resources. So they have introduced a lot of amendment in the rules and regulations to increase the participation of the private sector in the extraction and processing. And along with the central government, several state governments which are having the resources, they are also taking a proactive actions to accelerate this development of this exploration processing thing. But this takes a lot of time. So because government is taking steps, but implementation comes with the certain roadblocks, we'll say, that get addressed as we progress in this space. Another thing government is trying to support is the technology development. For example, they have opened multiple COE, Center of Excellence, to address the technology challenges associated with this. And my colleague, my co-panelists, they are involved in this critical mineral mission. They are working on the project, so I think they will be able to give more flavor, like what's going on from the industry side.
So when it comes to the National Critical Mineral Mission, one thing that we have seen aggressively move forward is auctioning of the various blocks of various critical minerals that are under NCMM. This includes manganese, phosphorus, and multiple other blocks that were, preliminarily explored already, maybe 5, 10 years ago. But since we did not see that as a very critical demand driver for our country, a lot of these blocks were put aside for a day when it was necessary. So I think NCMM came out around last January. To now it's probably 15, 16 months. But now we've already seen 3 different set of auctions, each containing maybe 10 to 12 blocks, ranging from all the critical minerals. We are also seeing companies, PSUs like IREL and APMDC also open up some of the peats and mining assets as well, to make sure that the private players are entering. And I think there is no restriction for overseas countries or companies to come invest into exploration and exploitation of these mines as well. I think one thing that the government has been very vocal on is to have a cross-boundary collaboration where there is active participation from an Indian company as well. So this is spread across all the minerals, and for most of the critical minerals we do have resources in the country, but they are underutilized. Like sir was mentioning, we either do not have the technology for processing it, or we just have not got into it yet. So there is definitely a very good opportunity for Korean companies or even the government itself to come in with exploration license and also possibly a composite license as well.
Thank you. I echo a lot of what my panelists have said. I think two things, right? One is in terms of exploration, of course, these are long timelines, but these are also very new ores. So they need a lot of R&D and technology development. That's where we could really use foreign investments and foreign participation from, especially from trusted partners like Korea, to come in and help us out with sort of developing these technologies and then taking it down further downstream, which could serve, of course, our own battery industry, which is on the rise and is going to be a big demand source, but could also be a good supply chain partner for Korean companies down the road, right? So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, which is on the recycling side, which the government is also promoting under the Critical Minerals Mission, which is another area where we feel that there's a lot of scope for collaboration in terms of sort of extracting some of these minerals from scrap material and from black mass to then be able to feed that back into the economy and for Korean technology providers as well.
One more question related to the critical mineral missions. As far as I know, the plan is include about 10,000 the workforce related to this sector. So is it achievable or not? And also the according to the plan, the stockpile of the strategic stockpile in the mineral, critical mineral and the rare earths, is it achievable or not? I think.
On this, if you take example of the rare earth side, so rare earth side, where there is a processing capabilities that exist in the country, and there is the gap is there on the metal to magnet. So if you are, even if you are processing those minerals, you need a market for that. And on the workforce development side, government is working on revising the curriculums of this in the different institutions, and also there is a lot of training programs are going on, so that industry is not struggling with the trained manpower in that. And we have seen the lot of startups coming in this ecosystem, working at the different stages, and that also giving a practical experience to the resources. Like a lot of people are working in these startups, getting exposure to the industry problems. So efforts are there in that direction, but as industry grow, this will evolve, and also in this area, the collaboration with the global partners will really help in accelerating these things. And what happens, like when we talk about the technology, like Korean companies brings the more high-end technology and understanding, and that partnership will help in shaping or sharpening the skills among the workforce.
I think 10,000 is a very small number. I am very, very confident that the skilled workforce, specifically to the critical minerals, mining to processing to, let's say, value addition, is going to be the next most promising sector in the country. Because even for us, when we started in 2019 with LFP, we did not have anyone that we could pick from any of the institutions, any of the companies, any of the academia, to directly hire them and give them 100% role of optimizing the product or optimizing the process. What we have done over the course of the last 6 years is to bring young people in and train them hands-on with the material, with the processes, with the know-how. And now we are seeing that a lot of these people are, at least the new generation, are willing to come into these critical mineral sectors, which is a little bit surprising given that Indian students are more focused on IT, but now we are seeing the mechanical, chemical, physics, all these subjects get a lot more credit. So I think 10,000 is definitely not sufficient for our country. I think definitely we're going to see more as the battery and also now the semiconductor industry is also evolving in the country. like sir was mentioning, I think it is a matter of time till people get hands-on experience. Once people start having hands-on experience, their expertise is going to lead them to start some enterprises, some businesses, which is going to then upskill more people. So I think 5 years to 10 years, I think 10,000 is a much smaller number. Even from a non-critical sector, let's say from coal, steel, we are seeing a lot of these people who have 5, 10, 20 years experience wanting to come into the critical mineral space. So it is not just going to be new workforce, it is also going to be experienced people who are retraining themselves for the different industries.
Broadly agreed, and I think the 10,000 number will be is very easily achievable. I think the only thing I'll add on is that we're also seeing the government, I think this has to be seen not just in isolation, but the government is also planning out schemes beyond just the critical minerals mission to bring in for talent, Indian talent that is currently placed abroad in the US or in the West, to bring them back to India, particularly researchers and other industry specialists. So I think all of these things is going to not just hit that number, but it's important to hit that number with a certain percentage dedicated to highly skilled workforce. Right? And I think that's sort of like the core priority for India right now, to be able to have a very large share of that be in the highly skilled segment, and not just in terms of, let's say, mine workers, or just in terms of sort of semi-skilled workers.
If I can add here, even this Anusandhan National Research Foundation, they are coming up with the various programs to attract the talent in this space from working in other countries, and also providing an opportunity to the experts working in various institutions in India, and come up with the focus is more now towards taking the technology from the R&D level to the demonstration to scaling for the manufacturing. That's why we see a large number of startups are coming in the premier institutes like IIT and CSIR labs, and this is an opportunity for the collaboration. Like Sureshji was mentioning in morning, that there is a evaluation program to support the startup working at the TRL 3, 4 to help them to scale their innovative solution to TRL 6 and 8. Can we explore the collaboration and partnership there to take those technology from TRL 7, 8 to the commercial level?
Okay, now I want to talking about the private business sectors. So, as far as I know, the Loham is one of the biggest the company in this sector, especially the cobalt and lithium refinery. And ultimately is a kind of some rising star in the lithium refinery. So first, my question is, what is differentiating difference of your strategy? And second is, I think the tracking and the explorations and the tracking is highly responsible for the government sector, but the processing is the private sector. So what is the most, in your value chain, what is the bottlenecks, the most important bottleneck to processing to make the product? Please.
So I think we differ, although we both are in the lithium space or battery material space. We differ almost, we are on the other side of the poles, because we predominantly focus on virgin material that comes out of mines and then processed, whereas Loham focuses predominantly on recycling and re-extraction of lithium from spent batteries and other waste as well. So for us, when you look at a company that is working from a mine to refinery, there are two key challenges, I think it's very similar to any other sector. First is the exploration to exploitation of a mine, specifically a spodumene mine in a location like Brazil is 5 to 7 years. This, given to consideration that all the energy and environmental friendly norms, everything is followed, it is 5 to 7 years. And when you come to the refining side of things, spodumene to lithium carbonate, the minimum plant size that you need to set up for it to become commercially viable is somewhere around 35,000, which is around 150 to 200 million US dollar capital. So these capital and the long gestation periods are the biggest risks and challenges. Again, we've also seen POSCO also enter into this space as well, making these investments maybe 3-4 years ago, and now maybe in a year and a half they'll come into fruition as well. So that would be the biggest challenge for a virgin material processor like ours.
So in terms of what differentiates Loham, I think I think it's sort of the platform approach that I was talking about earlier, right? We do see that within the critical mineral space, there's a lot of synergies to be captured. So for example, if you're going for battery recycling for lithium, it's important to be able to not only process lithium, but also cobalt and nickel, right? Because historically, we've sort of nickel NMC-based chemistries, so nickel-rich-based chemistries have been more predominant than now what is coming up in the LFP space. So we felt like it was important to set up capabilities for nickel and cobalt as well. Similarly, there are synergies, there are some processes that are similar within the rare earth space as well. So we then expanded into that as well. Similarly, also expanded into other critical minerals. So I think really focusing on recycling, like he said, and within that, capturing synergies across critical minerals is what really differentiates us. To answer your second question in terms of the bottlenecks, one is, of course, what people have talked about in terms of processing, that's a gap. I think the real hidden challenge is on the technology, and that's where some of the nuances really matter. So if you look at some of the export controls that were imposed recently on battery chemistries, a particular material called cathode active material, it was imposed by China for a chemistry called LFP. And they imposed it specifically for, I think, generation 3 or generation 4, which essentially means that even if India was to set up more and more facilities for cathode active material, the technology would ultimately still have to be imported from China. And I think that's sort of where a lot of the bottlenecks lie, where when you move up the value stream, you really dig into where the technology is coming from, where the feedstock's coming from. All of that sort of points to one country, right? And I think that's beyond just like that surface level of processing, even on the technology side is where some of those bottlenecks lie. That's what we're seeing in the industry today.
Okay, now just we have about 10 minutes left. So now I try to open the floor. So anybody who has the questions or comments or it's okay. You first.
Learn a lot about Chinese export restrictions on the machines, which are very, very important for and a machining part for recovering these critical minerals. If China is not supplying us, what can be the alternatives and what can be the way forward, if industry can guide us?
Started working on, even I'd say from 3 years ahead, was for example, in production of LFP, you have 3 or 4 critical equipment. You have your furnace, you have your bead mills, spray dryers. All of them exist in some way or form in our country, but not made for battery grade materials. But the same equipment is available outside in Germany, Netherlands, in the UK, elsewhere. So a lot of our trials when we were scaling up our product was not based on equipment that we were making here. We used to take our material to Europe, we used to take it to Germany, we used to take it to companies like Reedhammer, Nets and everyone, and then have the material processed there in the battery specific equipment itself. So that has always given us the upside of having non-Chinese equipment manufacturer list as well. At the same time, what we also started doing was developing capabilities in the country. So furnace is the biggest ticket item for us when you look at production of LFP. It is almost 130, 140 crores, almost 30-35% of our capex. So we started working with a Chennai-based company with whom we spent almost 3 years kind of tailor making the furnace exactly for us to an extent where in our pilot line we currently use that furnace. And going forward, we want to implement a similar kind of furnace in our commercial line as well. So equipment-wise, we are well insulated. Material-wise, the input raw material-wise, since we have our own lithium carbonate and iron phosphate, we're well insulated. And the technology-wise, it's the government of India developed technology that we've upscaled. So we are relatively, I would say, insulated, but again, it still opens us up with some sort of risk there as well.
I think I'll quickly answer that. We have a twofold strategy. One is sort of diversification, and the other one is do a backward integration, right? On diversification, we are sort of talking to partners across Korea, of course, but also in Japan, across the US. There are more of these technologies coming in, and we're hoping for sort of either direct partnerships or technology transfer partnerships. And once we sort of understand the space a little bit more, we are working towards backward integration and forward integration. So for example, on the battery side, we're working towards cathode active material. For that, eventually we hope to be able to develop the machinery itself ourselves. That's of course great from a security perspective, but also helps us on makes a stronger business case if we have our own machinery.
The Korean technology will be helpful in refurbishing of battery end of life, and secondly, exploration and refining of technology is required. Third is the scaling, and fourth, copper will be in future will be become a critical minerals. Copper. Next is the copper. Lithium. After lithium, copper will be there, and the battery whatever available, the recycling. 90% as per the new law. 90% we have to material recovery should be there. So there, not 100%, 90%. So there also the technology is required. Thank you.
Okay, please.
I think some mention was made about red mud, but India also has a lot of fly ash, and I think some recent studies last few years have demonstrated that fly ash is reasonably rich in rare earth elements, particularly for cerium in India, where the content is quite good. So and it's a big problem for us. We use a lot of thermal coke for our power plants, and I think at a minimum we generate about 10 to 15 million tons of fly ash every year at a very conservative level. So I just wanted to ask the panel, what's the state of play on the recovery of rare earth elements, particularly Indian coke, where cerium I think is the dominant metal that you can get from it. What's the state of play on it, and how can we use that resource, which is a ready resource, much easier to get than mining, and how that can be utilized for rare earth recovery? If anyone has a question on that.
There is a lot of in the rare earth space, people has explored the fly ash, phosphogypsum, and red mud. So in our case, whatever the coal comes from the Indian mines is having a lot of ash content in that. And you need some critical number, like more than 1000 ppm, before you think of exploiting that for the recovery of these critical rare earths. Because in some of the sources, we get a more heavy rare earths, which are valuable as far as the rare earth industry is concerned. Like for example, permanent manganese is driving this market, and dysprosium is very critical for this, and terbium. So the research is going on, and there is a pilot demonstration. DARC and few other organizations are working on this. So, but we have not seen the scaling of this, because this is restricted more on the research and demonstration level. But like I mentioned, in case of red mud, unless you have a market for that, it's very difficult, unless there is a clear signal for that market. It's very difficult for the industry to participate, but these are the opportunity. That's why I gave the example of red mud, that if we create a ecosystem where this getting a market will really help in exploiting these resources, because developing new mines take a lot of time and investment and come up with the environmental concerns. These are potential sources, but require very holistic approach if we want to develop. And one comment on, like, if you talk about the areas of collaboration, so synthetic graphite is the low-hanging fruit, because there India can play a very important role, and collaboration with the Korea will really help in not only developing this product for India or the Korea, but for the world this can be developed. Because synthetic graphite is coming up as a very serious critical material in the ecosystem.
Sir, so quickly, very similar lines. Lot of the Indian PSUs have gone and approached a lot of the CSIR institutes all the way, from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, to solve the red mud and the fly ash problem. Two things. One is the cost viability of extraction is one prohibitive reason. I know of a few PSUs who have sent fly ash to various government institutes to check it out, but the amount of actually extractable material per unit cost was not working out. I know, and red mud also a very similar situation. I know of a couple of instances. So it depends very much on the material detailing you have, and I think that will kind of define how well it can be extracted.
Yes, and I think the extractable value is one problem, and even if we were able to solve that R&D challenge, and I think the next one then becomes how do you even collect it, right? Bringing it to our facilities and then being able to process it is an additional logistical cost. When you factor that in, it becomes a much more economically unviable proposition. So I think both of these things then need to be solved. First on the R&D side, and then whether it works out from a logistics point of view as well. Yeah.
Yeah, hello. My question is to Loham as well as to Altman, and of course a little bit to WRI also. You have been talking about the collaboration, technical collaboration importing from other countries. Has any of these three companies done any work on the collaboration of working on their own technology to develop instead of going out to other countries? And of course, coming back to WRI on red mud, we have done a lot of work in our laboratory. Right? After the question, I'll tell you what it is done. And of course, with the fly ash, I have done a lot of work on that. We'll work on that, but technically, I would like to know what Loham, Altman, and WRA is using for the indigenous technology rather than importing. Thank you.
We're working on our indigenous technology. So the way we work is when we identify a new stream that we want to enter into, we try to identify potential technology transfer partnerships only at the very beginning. That is not to say that we import the technology necessarily. Across our lithium facilities, cobalt facilities, and now our newly incorporated CAM as well as rare earth facilities, we are working on our own technologies, which we've developed in our own lab. And have achieved record high purity levels and recovery levels in our own labs based in Greater Noida. And we're always happy to have visitors come and see our facilities and interact with our researchers and learn more about what we're doing.
For us, like I was mentioning previously, our technology was developed by ARCI, which is a Government of India R&D institute. So we understand that there is definitely tremendous amount of R&D being done in the country. But one of the challenges that we also have to be very cognizant about is, let us say, for example, the battery industry. Till 3 years ago, the battery industry in India was zero. Today also, in a very similar state. But a lot of the larger, let's say, Korean companies, Japanese companies, they've worked on the battery technology 20 years ago. They have a product that is scaled, that is efficiently running, and that can be reutilized. And today, if we get into the competition of, I want to develop my own technology just for the sake of, propping up ourselves, we are going to spend 7, 8, 10 years not be in a position where we are not sure if our product is good enough for the market, right? And that puts us in a very commercially difficult position. And that is why not just us, a lot of the young companies that are trying to do, we are looking at the Indian ecosystem first. But then we also have to be cognizant about what is out there, what we can scale up to, and how fast we can scale up to, right? It took us 5 years to scale up this technology for CAM. We have, I would say, another year and a half till we commission our first line. So that is an 8-year gestation period. That Indian ecosystem or the investors are very excited to see. Right? They want to see that you are working on something, you're implementing something coming from a country that is very tech-based, where you deploy packages in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Capital is not sitting and waiting for you to do your R&D for 8 or 9 years. So I think that is the main inhibiting factor. But with that said, when someone has already invented the wheel, I don't think we need to go around reinventing the wheel. Maybe you can better the wheel, but you can start at the wheel rather than starting somewhere else.
I can give you a quick example about that, right? So when it comes to sort of extraction, there are two processes. There's pyrometallurgy and hydrometallurgy. Now, pyrometallurgy is something that's very commoditized, very well understood as across recycling industries. So it doesn't make sense for us to completely sort of reinvent the wheel, to sort of borrow that phrase, and do it again on our own and take 5 years to be able to do that. But we're able to then use some of those technologies to then better it on the hydrometallurgy side and indigenize that part of the process.
Like if we are talking about the technology development, it's very important to have the right set of players together and having synergy among them and avoiding the duplications. I will take an example of battery, and in battery space we have a lot of challenges starting from upstream to midstream to downstream. There's a lot of R&D and research innovation support is required. So what we did, like we collaborated with the think tank working in this space, and we developed the Battery 360 Alliance, and Battery 360 Alliance is provided in a platform where researchers or startups, industry working on the battery related project, they come together, identified the actions in this space in short term, medium term and long term, and then together teams are working to address the challenge. For example, for the battery data management. So concept of battery Aadhaar is coming in a big way. So their EU has already developed the EU battery passport. But in our case, the supply chain is having a very different challenges. So instead of developing something about which we think once we apply is a big challenge, like learning with the hit and trial, rather than we started that let's discuss and develop from bottom-up approach. Academia is part of this. Like, see, academia-industry collaboration is a widely debated topic in India. And now if you just look back in the last 2-3 years, there is a strong collaboration and partnership is evolving among the industry, startups, and academia. Like almost all premier research institutes are having incubation centers. And this vibrant, what I mentioned, like vibrant startup ecosystem, that is coming out from the researchers and the engineers coming out from this space. So that if you see the kind of energy and the understanding they bring, this is a very, I'll say like it takes time, but this is a move in the right direction, I will say.
Okay.
So we are, like Praveerji was mentioning, we are one of those companies that is incubated inside the Ministry of Science and Technology R&D Institute. But that being said, now any fund that the government of India is providing to any Ministry of Science and Technology Institute has a clause that 20 to 40% of that fund has to come from an industry partner. So there is a very clear connection between industry and academia that is started, I would say 2 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, where government has mandated that you have an industry partner for any product. Previously, that was not the case. Previously, you could develop whatever you want as a scientist, as a practitioner. But now that is not the case. A very clear vision on what the industry wants and what the industry wants out of the academia. So we will start seeing these benefits. The policy just came out 2 years ago, so maybe in the next 5-10 years, they'll definitely be tremendous.
So we have so many things to discuss more, but we have no times. So now I will stop today's sessions. Thank you all the panelists and all the participants, especially very active to give us the questions. Thank you so much.
Our first speaker of session 2, Mr. Sanjeev Kumar Singh of Hindustan Copper Limited. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Very good morning to all of you. Sabko Sadar Namaskar. And I'm thankful that I've been invited here to speak out on this particular critical minerals. I superannuated 7 days back from Hindustan Copper. And I've worked in this industry for about 39 years. I'm basically a mining engineer from ISM Dhanbad. Worked for CMPDI for 21 years, then 14 years at NTPC, and then 4.5 years at Hindustan Copper. Why I'm saying this? Mineral has become now a very important subject, whether you deal with fossil fuels, coal, iron ore, bauxite, or anything. At our industry, at copper also, it has become very important. You said copper to be critical mineral, and I like to inform you, 3 years back, copper in the draft notification was under critical minerals. That 30 numbers ki jo list, in that list, copper was there. In Korea, copper is in critical minerals. Canada has got in critical minerals. So, but then when the final list came out of 26 minerals, copper was excluded for some X, Y, Z reasons. But government is again working on it, and we have made a formal request also. When I was CMD, I have made a formal request and hope government listens to us. That is, I thought I'll answer from this. Apart from that, we all know that copper comes with some other minerals. With the base metal, it comes with some either gold, silver, or lead, zinc. And the whole world needs critical minerals. But the only problem is the processing part. We don't have that much of knowledge also. I'm leaving China apart from this discussion. Majority of the processing knowledge is with them only. We don't have. But as copper miner, I can tell you Hindustan Copper is the only copper miner to the nation. It's a very strategic mineral. You have seen in the wars, in Operation Sindoor also, all your missiles were having that. On the tip, copper was there. So you can understand how strategic copper is for the nations. But God has not given enough copper. The reserves which we have is only 0.29% of the global reserves. So there are no reserves. The last mine which Hindustan Copper started was in 1982, was the Malanchkhand mine in the central part of the India in the state of Madhya Pradesh. There are 3 mining operations, one in Rajasthan, western part, one in central India, that is Madhya Pradesh, and the other is, and the expansion plans now take Hindustan Copper to 12 million tons in 2031. And that will be the ore production, which will be producing roughly 90 lakhs tons of copper concentrate. Since the grade is around 0.8 to 0.7%, large amount of tailings will be generated, and still we have large amount of tailings. In Rajasthan mine, we have 70 million meter cube of tailings. In Malanchkhand, we have got 75 million. Why I'm saying that? Because in our tailings, we are the first company to drill the tailings for this critical minerals only. We thought instead of going and doing some mining operations, let us drill our tailings. And we are the first company in the country, or rather in the world, to drill the tailings. It's very difficult to drill the tailings. They are wet at the bottom, dry at the top. So typical drills were used for that. We are still drilling the Malanchkhand, and in the Rajasthan, we already have the report. And that report signifies presence of rare earth. But again, you all know the rare earths are of 2 qualities, high and low. The lighter one is not of much use, but the heavier one is used for rare earth magnets. But we are moving in that direction. The SCL is already discussing with Zetro. You all know Zetro's office is in Delhi itself. That is a Japanese, all companies are there. They have referred it to Toyota Shosho. You must be doing Toyota Shosho also. But none of them have given a positive response because the rare earths are of lighter side, not the heavier ones. So the other tailings which are at Malanchkhand, I tell you, they have got a presence of molybdenum, which we have even floated a EOI also in both the mines, that agencies who have got the knowledge, they can come down, work with Hindustan Copper on revenue sharing model. Initially on the lab scale, then on the pilot scale, and they can generate it to a full-fledged plant on a revenue sharing. Mind it, no capital will be infused by Hindustan Copper. So we already did an EOI. Some parties did come, but still we are in the stage of discussion. But prior to that, I'll just like to tell you, because most of you are sitting here, about the copper also. Because copper doesn't occur as a only, the copper, if you see the periodic table, which was made by Professor Mendeleev in 1869, he knew the importance of copper. And he has put the copper above silver and gold. If you see the, you can see on the mobiles, the periodic table. He knew any development which is going to take place will take place on the platform of copper. Now I'll take you from here to 10,000 years back. You see, everybody talks about AI data centers. What are they? They're copper boxes basically. You just go 10 years back when the electric vehicles came. None of us knew about that it will consume so much of copper. It consumes 4 times more than the conventional. Go 30 years back when the renewables came, it came with copper. You go some 100 years back when industrial revolution came, it is copper. If you take the Indian history, 2000 years back, if you see Ashoka, Chandragupta and all that, they issued the appreciation letters in Tamrapatra. You go further back, and it's a very good example. There is a lady mummy lying down in Egypt, 5,000 years old. She is wearing a copper bracelet, which is open, signifying that energy flows from one direction to another direction. It signifies the health. So this is the importance of copper. I tell you, you all are having your mobile phones. Do you know the SIM card is of copper? Why copper? Because it's the only material which can hold millions of audio and visual data and can transmit it by its property of conductivity, malleability and all that. See the importance of copper. Since God knew that there will be shortage of copper across the globe, I'm now talking across the globe. Take it Chile, take it Indonesia. So what God did, God made it eternal, recyclable. It's the only metal which you recycle, never loses its property. It still remains 99.99% pure. 85% of the copper which is used in the current market is recycled. Only 15% comes from the route what we do. That is mining, concentrating, beneficiation and all that. 85% of the copper across the world is from the recycle industry. I think Loham has gone off. They have been awarded one of our contracts to run the plant in Gujarat from the secondary source. So what I mean to say, developmental activities are taken. The basis is copper only. See the mines, last 3 years production, you see Codelco and all that stagnates. Big accidents have taken place. So there is always a mismatch in supply and demand. Hindustan Copper has already joined hands with the world's biggest copper company, Codelco, a year back. And we are now going to mine those mines in Codelco. And those mines will also be not only copper, other minerals also. Lithium, which you have already discussed on the panel itself, the importance. So that is also, so Hindustan Copper in a nutshell I want to say, we are working on the critical minerals in a different state. We have already done the collaborations with CSIR institutes. IIT ISM is our partner. CISR Bhubaneswar, that is also partner. National Metallurgical Lab, they are doing a lot of experiments for us. But on this stage, I'm not able to tell you the exact results because they are still on the lab scale. We know the industry, academia, collaborations. Hindustan Copper has done collaborations with IIT ISM, IIT Kharagpur, and Shipur Engineering College, which is located in, only on this critical mineral, the ideas are being generated by the students and Hindustan Copper is there to do that. So that is very important because lab scale, where you'll do the tests, you have to go to the labs. And that data is very important. Now, importance is of that data. That has to be confidential and that has to be, and there comes the use of this AI and other tools. And ISM is using that AI tools for that. Even Shipur Engineering College, they have also taken up in that way. So the fruits will be definitely be taken up by Hindustan Copper in due course of time. And now, as I have superannuated, so I can't speak more, but we have done it in a scaled manner. Lab, pilot, and then full scale. With all the CSIR institutes of India. Being a government body, we are supposed to approach them. But mind it, what China did, China took 1 generation to come to this rare earth magnet. So we should also work patiently on that, should not rush to get a 3-year result within a 1 year. It will take at least 1 or 2 decades to come where China is as of now. That was what I wanted to say. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Program lead, CEW. He will share Mineral ecosystem and opportunity for Korea-India cooperation.
Okay. Good afternoon to all of you. It's really a privilege standing in front of such an august gathering and addressing this very pertinent issue. I would like to thank KIEP for inviting me for this important dialogue. So I'll be talking about what India and Korea should be doing in terms of. So let's get started. Now in today's world, the industrial advantage will not be having, those will not be having industrial advantage if they are only doing the mining. They have to do the refining, they have to convert them into material, and also they have to recycle them at the scale. If you do all the 3 things, then only you have a competitive edge. So before this, I would like to introduce from where I belong to. I belong to the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. We are a 15 years old think tank, leading think tank in India. We are a research-based organization. We do our work in terms of data, strategic outreach, and integrated analysis. We are working with almost 20 different governments, and we have a very high, large-scale impact on the many lives. So this is a small introduction about this, and now I get back to the topic which I want to discuss. So now you have to understand, from the critical mineral perspective, when you read about the critical mineral, you need to understand the entire extended value chain, right from exploration to the end user. So it starts with exploration, mining, then beneficiation, processing, manufacturing of the cathode anode plant, end user plant, and lastly the recycling. Now the paradox in this case that India do have all this kind of resource. We have rare earth oxides, we do have beach sands, availability of a good large coastal area, but we are still importing. We are still importing lithium, cobalt, and nickel. We are all the trade deficit in terms of procuring the critical equipments has also gone up. So in this case, we do understand that not only only having a geological resource is not going to help you. So what exactly is the need of an hour? So if you see what exactly the geology does. So a geology is only, it will only qualify as a supply chain when only it will be covered by the metallurgical test. We have finance at disposal, we have a demand also, and we have a proper regulatory mechanism. Then only it will qualify as a overall geological resource. Now in this case, India has all the scheme in place. We have National Critical Mineral Mission. As you can see on the screen that Government of India has already mandated 1,200 critical mineral blocks to be explored. Last year, 227 critical mineral exploration project has been done. But at this stage, if you see that it is not the number of resource which we, or number of the projects we do, it is basically how we are developing our resource base. Now, our resource base needs to be developed in terms of the individual site-specific mineralogical, backed by the metallurgical test, backed by the environmental regulations that is required to extract it, and also a comfortable, buyer of those minerals. Until unless we have that ecosystem, we are not going to see these deposits going to mature into a proper developed stage. Now, if you see on the screen that what Government of India has done over the years, so since last, or let's say after COVID or 2020, there's a plethora of reforms that has happened in the Indian mining sector. We can see the National Critical Mineral Mission, then MMDR rule got changed, which helped individual, private players to participate in these auctions. Also, we have rare earth corridors coming up. Then Kabil has got institutionalized so that they can acquire the raw material assets outside India. We also have a recycling policy in place. But still, there are certain gaps that are still need to be addressed. We have a stringent gap in terms of technology transfer. When I say technology transfer, because these minerals are very site-specific and mineralogical dependent. So their mineralogy, their study, their metallurgical test needs to be very key-based. Like it has to be very focused in terms of asset buy. So that we require. Number one. Number two, in this case, there has been a financing gap. Now, financing is one area where needs to be proper focus because investor becomes wary of investment until unless the prices go up and down. Third, if you can see in this, there's a proper coordination. The coordination from the ministerial and other bodies, like there are other interdepartmental needs to come together and then it can help. Now, in this case, we need a partner. We need a partner and Korea can play a very important role. Let's, for example, like Korea's geological and financial institutes, again come with the India and they can explore the India's, entire mineral base, and then they can jointly come up with the proper database, and that database will help an end-to-end project, right from exploration to processing. That kind of thing will definitely attract the serious investor on this place. Finally, if you can see that what exactly needs to be done if India and Korea comes together. So there are mutual synergies. Like India, at the one hand, they have a good policy momentum in place. We have a largest market, like in terms of EV and renewable energy. Also, what Korea promises, like Korea in this sense, they have technology, they have technical know-how, they have skill manpower. In that case, the synergy between the two nations can be mutually explored. Now, once this is being done, then we can see that Korea and India can jointly collaborate in terms of having those critical materials. So it is not only the mineral trade, it is more of a material trade that needs to be dealt with. Okay, so this is one more important point which I want to discuss and nobody has discussed about. So apart from battery and rare earth, there's one more area which is called semiconductor. Now for semiconductor, you require high purity quartz. Now India has abundance of quartz, but those quartz cannot be used for this, for semiconductor. It needs to be refined at a very higher scale. Now what happens, India and Korea both at this stage, they are procuring this quartz from the US. And US, in North Carolina, the 70% of the global high purity quartz gets supplied. Now, if any hurricane hits that area, then entire your semiconductor industry will come at a standstill. Rest 30% of this will be supplied by Russia. So you can see this, the entire supply chain of this semiconductor raw material, that is the high purity quartz, is very stringent. Now, what we can do? How India, Korea can collaborate? Now, India has a large resource of quartz and pegmatite. Now, it can be explored, like does India's or India's pegmatite resource can be upgraded with the help of a chemical technology to that high purity quartz. So that kind of research can be taken up. Number two, that India has a semiconductor mission, so that all those mission places where the semiconductor plants has come up, mainly in Gujarat, Sanand, and Dholera area. Then you have midstream based crucibles and structures can be set up, so that can also reduce your current trade account. Also, it can improve, it can enhance. And thirdly, recycling of those crucibles, so that you can optimize those quartz from those spent crucibles. So these things can be done. Here is one area where both the nations can collaborate. Lastly, if I can see what both the nations can pragmatically they can do. So let's look at this one by one. First is the upstream area. Now upstream is one where both the nations should jointly come together and explore where they can have mutual synergies. For example, like in the mine in Argentina, where Korea and Kabil both are trying to acquire the assets, then they can jointly come up and they can de-risk the entire ecosystem, and then they can have their own upstream investment. That's number one. Number two, if you can see the midstream part. Midstream, we have rare earth corridor. Now, those dedicated rare earth corridor required a proper technology transfer, scaling of the technology, end user magnet plants that needs to be developed. So that midstream they can directly contribute. Third is basically the rare earth permanent magnets and the DLE technology. I do understand that this is direct lithium extraction is a very specific, site specific, and has a challenge in terms of water recovery. But still, these things can be done at a pilot scale and slowly can be scaled up. So these technologies can be brought into India, and then we can learn more from that. Fourth point that we can understand is, in this case, is recycling. Now, recycling has been given a lot of impetus because we are a large consuming nation, and there will be a lot of end of use vehicles, equipment will come up. So recycling, and through recycling, this is the easiest way to get entry into Indian ecosystem, because this will give you, because Government of India has now come up with a good amount of scheme under National Critical Mineral Mission, so that will help you in terms of getting entry into recycling. And lastly is the financing. Now, our comprehensive economic partnership agreement, there has to be a separate dedicated chapter for the finance. So that will help the Korean banks, Exim banks to come in play and sign a proper offtake. Rather than MU, they should sign a proper offtake agreement, so that this could help us infusing the finance into the system. Why we required all these 5 practical measures? Because this is a very opportune time. In next 10 years, you will see that the gap between the raw material security for the one nation which is requiring and the technological gap is going to be huge. Now, just for simple example, we were discussing about in the beginning that for the batteries, now the battery technologies keep on changing. By 2030, we were envisaging that sodium-ion battery may come up. Going forward, it may be lithium metal, it can be silicon anode, it could be anything. So this technology upgradation will happen on a continuous basis. It is where we need to catch up this race, so that our large population which we have to cater should not be at the expense of raw material insecurity. So that is what I have to convene in this. And ultimately, there are 2 things. India has the large population base, demand. India has policy momentum in place. Korea, on the other side, has the capital, they have a technology know-how, they have a skilled manpower. They should jointly come together and explore the mutual synergy so that their individual strengths should be collaborated for the overall growth. That's it. Thank you.
Research Associate Miss Anita Sin of CESP. Please welcome her with a big round of applause.
Thank the organizers for having invited me here. And I think this has been a really interesting conversation. We've heard a lot from industry, we've heard a lot from the different PSUs and from various different experts. And I think we've gotten into how the sector of the critical minerals is working. I come from more of a foreign policy background. So I think I'll be talking a little bit more about what frameworks can India and Korea put in place to allow for this cooperation to go ahead. I think that's been one of the driving forces for this conversation here as well. So I think we kind of understand that critical minerals have now become a foreign policy issue. Given the cross-sectoral importance that they have, it's not only for green energy, it's not only for defense, it cuts across sectors, and I think we've moved from this market logic to a strategic logic. Korea, for instance, I think realized this. Obviously, Japan realized this in 2010 when they faced exports. Korea in 2022 when they faced exports of urea from China. That led to a lot of security issues and energy issues. And India has also been moving towards this, and various other countries post-COVID have kind of realized the importance of having to diversify supply chains. Oh, I'm sorry, I think my presentation has kind of turned off. Okay. Diplomacy has also moved as fast as industry has moved. We've seen various bilateral, multilateral, and regional plurilateral clubs that have come about. We've seen the Mineral Security Partnership, which then became Forge in 2022 February. We've seen the Quad Critical Mineral Security Initiative as well. We've seen Pax Silica being signed. Various countries have gone ahead and signed MOUs, the US, Brazil, Japan. India itself has signed these. Korea itself in the past 18 months has signed a lot of these minerals. So I think we kind of see the importance that the governments of various countries are also putting on this. Capital is also chasing de-risking. So we've kind of seen how governments are putting across letters of interest. There's export credits, blended finance is being put into place, and there's kind of this realization that capital has to go into mining, processing, and recycling, plus that states can't do this alone. A lot of this has to be private sector driven, so I think everybody's trying to have a more of a public-private sector conversation. And India and Korea are both middle powers, as we talk in international relations literature. And the question is no longer should they cooperate, but it is more about how they should cooperate and how this can be put into place. So for South Korea, what are the strengths that it has? Okay. So this I think we've kind of covered. I'm not going to go into this too much. I think we've had an August gathering which has covered the domestic landscape that India looks into. What all of this signals to Korea is that India is moving from raw resource endowment towards a policy-backed program. The rare earth corridors can function as identifiable locations for Korean firms to particularly invest, so kind of focusing on these 4 states that have been identified. And participation in a lot of these multilateral forums kind of gives more of the avenue to exchange knowledge, to understand what projects are being discovered, what different countries are doing, and I think that kind of helps a lot of different governments to identify where cooperation can happen and where it cannot. But India, I think, like my previous panelist mentioned, we still do lack the large refining capacity, processing capacity, and I think this is the gap Korea is very well equipped to fill. So Korea itself is a global manufacturing power. It is the second largest EV producer, and I think this is one of the key complementarities that India has with Korea. It is also a top-tier producer for semiconductors and advanced manufacturing. It is also leading in black mass conversion, which is, I think, a conversation a lot of industry people in the recycling and EV sector has. And it is already working with a lot of firms in the US and Australia. And these also emerge as key partners for India, and I think that kind of builds that potential for trust and cooperation. It has been chairing Forge through mid-2026, which kind of helps identify a lot of these projects. Forge in February, where we had the Critical Minerals Ministerial The External Affairs Minister had visited the US, and there was a lot of conversation on price flooring and stockpiling. And I think those are key conversations that a lot of nations are going to go take ahead to kind of understand how to stabilize the market, how to make sure that you have enough stockpiles and reserves in case any unforeseen emergencies do come about. Now, Korea already has a lot of capital in motion. Internationally, Korean Zinc alone has committed enough money in North America. I think it's 1.25 billion in debt and 150 million in equity. And POSCO, I think we had Dr. Kim in the previous panel who kind of went into how the steel industry in Korea is also developing and sharing a lot of finance abroad. LG is one of the key ones, and Korea Zinc, which I think has enough complementarity with a lot of Indian companies given how India is leading with Hindustan Zinc and all the work that we've been doing. Within that, I think understanding the Korean ecosystem becomes really important. Korea has this supply chain stabilization fund within the Korean, which is housed within the Korean Import-Export Bank. I think we have some colleagues here who will be able to share a little bit more information on that. And I think that has allocated 55 trillion Korean won up to 2027 to allow for a lot of these partnerships and projects to go ahead. And why this is important, because Korea, despite having a lot of this downstream capacity, does not have most of these minerals. So they will be looking abroad and they will be looking for partnerships, and I think India is positioned really well to take that ahead. So just a little bit on how the India-Korea relationship has kind of moved. So 2010 primarily saw the Comprehensive Economic Partnership being signed between India and Korea. That was the start of a lot of the conversation on trade and allowing for more trade facilitation. In 2025, India elevated its partnership with South Korea to a special strategic partnership. This allowed for obviously much more conversation, a lot more research and development, people-to-people mobility. And since then, we've kind of been a stronger partner for South Korea. And as you can see, there's been a huge gap since then. I think most of the momentum, specifically on the critical minerals, clean energy, and a lot of cooperation happens in February 2026, when obviously India joins Pax Silica, which we talked about, semiconductors being really important. Pax Silica also feeds into the larger critical minerals conversation. We had the summit just a couple of weeks back, which was more focused on AI and critical minerals in the US. And April 2026 is when President Lee Jae-myung visits India. This has been the first visit by a South Korean president in almost 8 years. That kind of signals the interest that the Koreans have in India and how they're looking to partner with India within the larger ecosystem. And I think it's at a good position that we can leverage this partnership. And that is when we signed this joint strategic vision till 2030, which has a lot of multiple different MOU subcommittees that look into this. And the target is to upgrade SIPA 2.0 till 2027. So what some of the concrete outcomes of the April 2026 summit are the ministerial level industrial cooperation committee. This is where a lot of the cooperation on the critical minerals is going to be housed. And obviously growth in bilateral trade, negotiations, and a lot of MOUs have been signed. So this, I think, is just more to understand why we should work together. I'm not going to go into this too much. I think this is pretty clear. This is, again, a little bit, I think previous panelists have covered this as well. What are the complementarities? What India has, what Korea has. I think I'll just do a little bit of what Korea has been doing. Obviously, one of the leading battery-grade processing technologies. They have a lot of patient capital and conglomerates. They also have very good public financiers through the Import-Export Bank, their trade insurance cooperation, and they have a lot of already working projects. I think that kind of gives more assurance to a lot of investors when working with partners who have a lot of projects. And more than that, I think we already have a very strong industrial base in India, specifically in the automotive sector, where we have Hyundai, Kia, LG, Samsung trying to build plants. So now what are the avenues to actually mobilize this partnership? I think critical minerals need to be included in the new comprehensive economic partnership. Try to kind of understand what are the IP sharing norms, processing technologies. We need to also have a dispute resolution mechanism when it comes to specific minerals and minerals trade, because I think that is one of the key avenues that is often not discussed. We need to operationalize the Industry Cooperation Committee and other frameworks. This is where a lot of this is going to be housed. We need to have a bilateral channel which can be nested under the economic security dialogue. This is where India and Japan also cooperate a lot on the minerals within the economic security dialogue, which has just been announced in the 2026 joint vision statement. And this can also be a place to talk about, obviously, the more nuanced conversations of price flooring, stockpiling, and fast-tracking joint exploration. And obviously ensuring R&D and tech transfer. Within this joint statement, there's something called the Korean Industrial Townships, almost a replica of what the German industrial township, for the Japanese industrial townships have been, to actually have these clusters and hubs that allow for a lot of Korean companies to set up bases in India. This would obviously allow for a lot of knowledge transfer, a lot of technology transfer. We've already seen the progress and success of that with Japan. And the last one is third country diplomacy. India obviously has a very strong presence in Africa. We're building it in Latin America, Central Asia, and Korea can also leverage a lot of India's partnerships and kind of build trust within them and look for joint ventures. This is just a little bit on, I think we've talked about financing. My previous panelist talked about how important it is and why it's important. Obviously, there needs to be a sovereign framework which can be housed within all of this, blended and export finance through a lot of these financing agencies within India and within Korea. And obviously the need for private capital to be moved forward within the JVs. There's potential for commercial scale up. I think because I'm already running short of time, I'll quickly wrap up. And, but there are things that still need to be resolved for. So there's a huge trade asymmetry, which has been one of the friction points between the India-Korea partnership. I think Korean exports are roughly 3 times Indian exports to Korea. So there's a huge trade deficit which has to be addressed, which has been one of the key concerns of the cabinet as well in a lot of these conversations. And once that is settled, I think the potential for cooperation will increase a lot more. There is no standing bilateral minerals body yet, which has kind of been discussed. The Industrial Cooperation Committee can take this role. There is potential for that, but it'll need to have mandated charters, trying to figure out, all of that needs to be defined, and that's something that the 2 partners can work towards. And technology transfer terms need to be defined a little bit more. This has been one of the key issues that India has had with a lot of its other global north partners, be it Europe, UK, or the US. And because of the potential for IP sharing norms and co-development of different technologies, and the experiences a lot of these countries had with China during the solar panel and solar ingots era back in the early 2000s. So given all of that, I think there is already architectures that are in place. There's a lot that they can do. They just need to be operationalized. Yeah, I think I will close there because I'm already out of time. So thank you. We can have a conversation later.
Next, I'm honored to introduce our final speaker of session 2, Principal Researcher Dr. Jin Young-lee of Korea Institute of Geoscience and Mineral Resources. He will speak on Korea-India Partnership for Critical Mineral Supply Chain. It provides pre-recorded presentation due to some network issue. Kindly listen carefully.
Of Geoscience and Mineral Resources, KIGAM. It's an absolute honor to speak at the 5th Korea-India Future Economy and Industry Forum. Today, I'll be sharing our strategy on Korea-India Partnership for Critical Mineral Supply Chain. As we know, today's high-tech industry faces tough challenges, especially with the supply chain tied to specific country and resources being weaponized. That's why today I want to briefly highlight how Korea's top-tier mineral refining technology and India's massive resources potential can combine to build a truly sustainable manufacturing partnership.
Before diving into the main topic, I'd like to briefly introduce my institute, KIEP. Founded back in 1918, KIEP is Korea's only government-funded research center in the field of geoscience and mineral resources. Today, KIEP have 525 staff members and about 300 of them are PhD degree researchers. To give you an idea of our scale, our 2025 budget was around 154.8 million US dollars, which comes from government funding and our own revenue. To kick off the first session today, I'd like to examine the monopoly of rare earth elements by specific countries and the risks it poses to the global supply chain. As you may know, neodymium permanent magnets act as the heart of future advanced industries, including eco-friendly motors and defense. Right now, their global supply chain is heavily dominated by a specific nation. This dominance isn't just about mining, it extends all the way through high purity separation, refining, and even the final magnet sintering process. In particular, the recent introduction of export licensing requirements for certain critical materials has created serious supply chain instability across global manufacturing industries, diversifying a value chain that is heavily dependent on a single country and building a trust-based, mutually resilient supply chain. Partnership has now become an essential task for survival. The best and most practical alternative we have right now is a strategic alliance between Korea and India. Korea is a proven leader in this field. We successfully served as the very first chair of FORGE, the Forum for Geostrategic Resource Cooperation. Through this, we took the lead in setting global trade guidelines and standards for diversifying global supply chains. At the same time, India is fast-tracking its resource sovereignty under the National Critical Minerals Mission, using its massive rare earth reserves, which rank third in the world. But right now, India still needs to unlock the full potential of high-value processing to truly scale up the industry. When you bring these two together, Korea's world-class refining technology and India's vast resource territory, we get the perfect match. This alliance will create the most reliable partnership to finally break the global supply chain monopoly. Now, let me share the history of KIEP's rare earth research. As you can see from the legend at the bottom of the slide, our institute has accumulated technologies across the entire life cycle, from beneficiation to cracking and leaching, and finally, rare earth element separation. Before the 2000s, we conducted foundational research on cracking, leaching, and separation, focusing on Chinese bastnäsite and Malaysian monazite. Then, in the early 2000s, we laid the groundwork for global cooperation by researching the production of high-purity, rare earth materials from Vietnamese minerals. In particular, from 2003 to 2021, we focused on advancing the entire process, from beneficiation to separation, using monazite from 3 domestic deposits. More recently, since 2024, we have been stepping up our research on the beneficiation, cracking, and leaching of Vietnamese bastnäsite to help diversify the global supply chain. KIEP has fully mastered the downstream process. This begins with the beneficiation to prepare concentrate from raw ores and goes all the way to high purity separation and refining for each individual element. More importantly, we have the core source technology for smelting, specifically using high-temperature electrowinning to turn chemically synthesized rare earth compounds into pure metals. From there, this smelting technology flows right into alloy manufacturing via vacuum melting and the production of key industrial intermediates like magnetic powders and phosphors. Next, this diagram shows KIEP's process for recovering byproducts and rare earth elements from monazite. The biggest obstacle in processing monazite is the safe handling of radioactive materials. As you can see from the flow chart on the right side of the slide, KIEP has developed a technology that uses a solvent extraction process to separate and recover the byproducts, thorium and uranium, with a high efficiency of over 99%. Simultaneously, through the process on the left, we perfectly recover highly valuable phosphoric acid, thereby maximizing the economic viability of the entire process. Once the radioactive substances and byproducts are removed, the purified solution enters the mixed stage located at the bottom center. Now let's move on to the AI-based monitoring and control system developed by KIEP. This system was designed to maximize both the efficiency and stability of the rare earth separation process. In reality, the multi-stage separation process is like a black box. It's incredibly tough to see or verify the internal variables. To clear up this issue, KIEP built an online monitoring system that links directly with real-time pH and concentration analysis tools. On top of that, we integrated AI-powered control algorithms. This allows the system to proactively spot any abnormalities and control the process remotely. Thanks to this breakthrough, we have secured a unique, smart smelting technology that keeps the highly sensitive separation of each element both completely stable and exceptionally pure. Based on these core proprietary technologies, KIEP has actively expanded its technological footprint with global resource-rich nations. A representative case of this is our cooperation with the Vietnam Department of Geology and Minerals. Backed by ODA funds from both governments, we established the Critical Mineral Supply Chain Technology Cooperation Center in Hanoi. Through this center, KIEP is transferring its core expertise in exploration, beneficiation, and smelting. This marks a significant departure from past resource development methods, which focus solely on taking raw ore mining rights. Instead, it serves as a highly successful and sophisticated diplomatic model that builds trust with resource-rich nations and mutually enhances the value chain. Right after the Public Tech Center Star Group, Korea's private leader in permanent magnets, successfully set up its own independent sintered magnet factory in Quang Nam, Vietnam. This facility, known as SGI Vina, has hired a top-tier team of 300 local operators. Using Korea's world-class neodymium sintered magnet designs, they now offer a one-stop direct supply of parts for the EV motor supply chains of both Hyundai and the local automaker VinFast. Now let's shift our focus to India, our key partner today, and look a bit closer at their market. India is an incredible resource-rich nation with a massive 6.9 million tons of strategic resources buried mainly along its southeastern coast. Yet, surprisingly, India's share of the global market supply is still under 1%. The main reason is that India doesn't have the mid to downstream backbone of the magnet value chain, specifically RE, separation and refining facilities, or magnet sintering plants. Without this infrastructure, India has a fragile, unbalanced supply structure, meaning they have to rely entirely on specific foreign markets to import more than 50,000 tons of finished permanent magnets every single year for their electric vehicles and high-tech gadgets. The Indian government is tackling this issue head-on with some very aggressive moves. In early 2025, they made a historic amendment to the MMDR Act. This officially broke the state-owned IRAL's 75-year monopoly over rare earth mines, completely opening up the bidding process to the private sector. Right after that, they launched the National Critical Minerals Mission, locking in a budget of about $1.9 billion. On top of that, India designated 4 major states, Odisha, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu as their core rare earth corridors. To back this up, they started rolling out 7.28 billion rupees in PLI production and machinery subsidies for companies building manufacturing hubs in these areas. This is exactly why right now is the perfect timing to combine Korea's world-class technology with India's massive industrial push. To sync up with India's policy push, I want to propose a specific 3-stage Korea-India win-win partnership plan today. The first step is setting up a joint tech research center near IRAL OSCOM, the massive smelting facility in Odisha. This will allow us to tailor and localize KIEP's core source technologies for the Indian market. Through this center, we will deploy KIEP's proven process that completely shields radioactive thorium, which will smoothly solve KIEP's regulatory issues. On top of that, we will transfer our AI-powered monitoring and automation system for the separation process, immediately boosting rare earth refining productivity to the max. The second step is to build a Korea-India joint research and technical cooperation hub, like a joint venture, using India's massive rare earth infrastructure. Here, we will inject Korea's core technology for making permanent magnets with reduced heavy rare earth content. This will allow us to set up a local production base for high-value NFA magnets, driving a great synergy with India's manufacturing drive. Finally, the third step is to strategically tie together the financial cooperation channels and policy funds built between our two nations. This will complete a total package support system that ensures the stable operation of joint projects and minimizes any initial business risks. Let me leave you with our final conclusion today. The only true solution in this competitive race for tech supremacy is to tie everything together: the mining sources, the refining hubs, and the final consumer markets into one powerful, connected ecosystem. The all-in-one package we discussed today, bringing together public tech sharing, private JV magnet facilities, and policy funding, will be the perfect solution. It will elevate our relationship far beyond just trading raw materials, allowing Korea and India to stand together as a powerful alliance leading the global advanced supply chain. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Good afternoon, and since morning we are going through the different presentations and discussions, and since morning we have understood why to work together. We have also seen that areas to work together, and then Dr. Lee, Dr. Abhinav and Anandita has highlighted the opportunities and challenges in this partnership and collaboration for the critical minerals. And Dr. Lee has highlighted that how we can work together, and he has suggested the phase-wise approach what we can adopt. And the point, if you just go back and look into the areas, so one, we are talking about the resources, where India is having presence in terms of we are doing the extraction and processing of certain minerals, and there is a large set of resources which is unexploited. Especially if you talk about the rare earths, the graphite, and the few other minerals. Rare earths we have discussed, and we know that IREL is processing the monazite, which is dominated by the light rare earths, and there are resources identified into the different part of the country, like a xenotime, having the presence of heavy rare earths in that. And we have also discussed that we have a very strong academia industry collaboration coming out, COEs are coming out, government is providing a lot of support, research and innovation ecosystem is emerging, but major focus is there up to the lab to pilot level demonstration. And then we also discuss about supply chain resilience and financing aspect. Now with my fellow panelists, would like to understand that more actionable point, that if we want to have a very robust collaboration, then especially I will start with Sanjeev ji, and understanding, like you mentioned about the process work of the Hindustan Copper Limited, and if you want to exploit the resources available and strengthen the processing and refining capacity and developing the ecosystem where we are taking from resource to the product. So what should be the actionable points at this stage for this forum?
The actionable point, as you asked, has to be in collaboration with the institutes. So for example, IMT Bhubaneswar, with whom Hindustan Copper is already engaged. It should be lab scale, then pilot scale, and prior to that lab scale, the proper DPR should be there. See, where we lack is that without any firm analysis, we move on. So there should be a firm analysis. As I have said, huge quantities of tailings are with Hindustan Copper in 2 mines in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. 70-80 million meter cube of tailings are there. So what we have done, I'm just giving our example, we have taken NML, National Metallurgical Lab. You already know there is a hub and scope which has been done by Ministry of Scope. So industry and institutions have collaborated, and they are working on our tailings. They have already taken samples 6-8 months back, and then they have already started getting the results on their lab scale, and then they will make a pilot plant also. By our expenses, they will develop that, and then finally, if the technology is proven and all that, the recovery is good and viable, then Hindustan Copper will take it. So these are the following steps, and we should not overstep any of the steps. This is my primary concern, which I think Loham and Altiman also said, that they should do it in a systematic way. This is what my personal, and as CMD of Hindustan Copper, this was, and this is how we moved, taking Ministry of Mines into confidence.
Coming to you, Abhinav, developing a bankable project is very critical. Like there is a n number of opportunities are available, but how we forge the collaboration that helps in having the very bankable projects which takes the things at the commercial level and then going beyond that.
Okay, thank you for this question. So for any bankable project, few things are required. As an investor, as a participant, I need to have a raw material security so that my plant should not remain, idle. That's number one. Proper technology transfer, because the switching cost of the technology is very high. You cannot change technology A to technology B in a day's time. It takes some time. So you need to have the technology in place. Third in place, if you can have a proper mineral evacuation facility. You have a mine, you have everything, there's no evacuation, then it doesn't make sense. So a proper evacuation infrastructure needs to be have, which can infrastructure. Fourth point, all the ancillary things like power sector, water, you need water for these critical minerals, water, power, all those things are required. And lastly, a regular customer or who can buy your product. So once all these 5 things get, assimilated in a structured manner, then you can have a bankable project. But to start with at the beginning, I just started on one note. At the beginning, you have to share all the information, which sir rightly mentioned that even in the block summary or even whatever information comes to the bidder, they can, because it's a highly capital intensive game, you cannot put, thousands of crores of money without less informed. Or either you be fully informed and either you wait it out till all the information are there at your disposal. And to obtain that information, let's say the geological report or the lab testing, it takes time. So that's how it will be done. Thank you.
On this technology aspect is coming very strongly in this collaboration discussion. So the issue that Nandita has also mentioned, that business, like technology transfer issues, and you have mentioned how we resolve this in this.
I think that has been one of the key issue areas that India has faced, not only with Korea, but I think with a lot of its other partners as well. And I think a lot of it comes down, obviously, to the different industry partners. So a lot of companies already have existing partnerships and they already have their networks. And I think those can definitely be leveraged. But I think there's a key role that the state can play itself. And I think having these larger frameworks that then allow the companies to feel like there is trust and that they can move in, that if there is because companies do have risk appetite, but not that much risk appetite. And they need to feel a little bit more comfortable to be able to move in and establish a lot of these partnerships. And I think India has done a lot with its different partners. So I think we can learn, specifically when we're moving ahead with this India-Korea partnership and we want to build it further. I think there's multiple different avenues that we can look to. And we don't have to, I think we said in the previous discussion as well, reinvent the wheel when it comes to even establishing a lot of these cooperation mechanisms. So I think Korea and Japan are often considered very similar sort of partners that India engages with. And I think the Japanese example has been one of the most successful ones that India has seen, specifically in the industrial sector collaboration. And I think there's a lot that India can learn from that collaboration. I think I'm shutting the mic myself, sorry. But on the state side, I think there's also various other frameworks that do exist. I think our collaboration with the UK, for instance, I think we spoke a lot about technology transfer and developing a lot of these labs and collaborations. I think TextMin at ISM Dhanbad, in fact, has a very robust partnership with Cambridge in the UK. And we have something called the Supply Chain Observatory, which is now in its second phase, and it's already started a lot of funding, and they're kind of looking at, it's a data sharing, larger mapping conversation and exercise that both the institutions are doing. And I think having those collaborations helps a lot of data accessibility, which can then be built upon by industry, by the government. With Europe as well, we have the Trade and Technology Council, which I think initially had within one of its working groups, these matchmaking events, where a lot of industries from India and counterparts from Europe were present for a lot of exchange of knowledge and sharing and kind of coming to terms to figure out how they can work with which partner in India. And having, I think, similar sort of events within a lot of our partnerships could help a lot of this technology transfer, collaboration, and trust building, because I think that is the base that we have to come to then actually build something more viable.
Thank you, Anindita. Actually, we have a limited time, so I have a set of questions to discuss here. But before that, I'll just request all my co-panelists to give 3 recommendations on this topic. Like, if we want to build the Korea-India Critical Mineral Partnership, investment, industry, and supply chain cooperation, what will be your 3 recommendations?
Number one, as far as I mentioned, there should be a data transfer. Means, as I saw that Keegan also an institute there, they should come, take our samples, do their analysis. So, and we should also share our analysis part. So that should be there. A proper DPR. Again, I repeat those words. DPR should be framed, and based on that, financial analysis to be done.
Abhinav.
Okay, so 3 recommendations could be like starting from exploration. Like we have a huge obvious, gap in terms of exploration. So exploration needs to be done on a fast track basis, and the data for the exploration needs to be captured so that any technology or AI intervention could be done. So that data sets need to be prepared. So the answer is first is data set. The data set for exploration needs to be built in. Number 2, the technology know-how. Every company, every organization is now doing for the midstream on their own, site-basis activity. Like you're getting, as just sir mentioned, like from tailings you are having the recovery, from the overburden you are having the recovery. So those you have to formalize those second step. Formalize those all individual silo pilot experience into the scaling, like whether it is scalable or not. That needs to be taken care of. Third, parallelly, what you need to done, there are still a lot of gap in terms of, regulatory bottlenecks. Like you don't get the clearances so that the mine doesn't get operationalized, a plant doesn't see the, because of the environmental embargo. So come up with those areas where these become very seamless for any other nation to participate in this India's ecosystem. If these things can be done, yeah, rest will follow. That's it.
Thanks, Abhinav. Anindita.
I think in addition to what all my panelists have said, I think those are very important. And just to add, I think I would say perhaps figuring out how trade in minerals is actually going to work. I think having those same HS codes, figuring out, I think that comes that's part of data sharing and kind of having all of those in alignment, because once there's a discrepancy on that, you don't know where your ore is coming from, your material is coming from. So I think perhaps having, if it's not part of the comprehensive partnership agreement, perhaps having a larger MOU that actually does cover this. And I think not being vague, but being a little bit more practical on what it actually is going to lead to. And I think one of the lower hanging fruits that we should definitely start with, because that will build a lot of this foundation, is a lot of this R&D collaboration, because I think that would automatically allow for the trust building and all of that to go ahead. And I think within the partnership, we've talked about these industrial townships, and I think that is something that can work ahead, because I think, as Mr. Abhinav also said, that having those ancillary industries and having all of that in place allows for a lot of this cooperation to go ahead, and it would allow for a lot more to happen.
Thanks, Anita. Can we open this session for the question from the audience? And I will request to have one question per.
Is to sir, who just superannuated from Hindustan Copper. Sir, India is blessed with the copper. To the best of knowledge, we understand that we were the net exporter of copper almost 7-8 years back. I think more than declaring it as a critical item, any item which has to be critical, it is only because of the rarity. We do not have a rarity of copper. Copper is available in terms of 85%, you rightly mentioned, in terms of recycling and circularity, and 15% is coming from the new sources. Do you think that rather than putting it to a critical mineral, it will be important for the government to reform the ecosystem with the roadblocks which has created a system in our country where, sir is rightly pointed out, environmental clearances and all those. We need to work on that, including bringing our courts into picture so that The justice is delivered on time, it is not denied. And the industry which was a surviving industry, making our country a net exporter, has become a net importer. I mean, how in 5-8 years we become a net importer of copper? Your take, sir.
Before it is working very hard, and all the departments, I mean to say Ministry of Environment and Forest, Ministry of Mines, and everybody is working, even the state governments, respective state governments. Why I'm saying, in last 4 years, we have opened all the closed mines of the Ghatshila region. Mines were closed since 2001 July. Those mines have reopened, restarted, and this year in 26-27 you will see astounding performance from Hindustan Copper. Last year also, in 25-26, it made a profit of roughly more than 1,200 crores. 7 years back, it was having a losses of 600 crores, 1,700 crore ka loan tha. Now, we are a debt-free company. So these restart of the closed mines, I mean to say, has been done by the help of the state and center both. All the state governments have cooperated in this aspect, considering this copper part only, that it has now, every day it is becoming more and more critical to the country. And in environment and forest also, things have become more and more easy, I will like to tell you. Because I've been in this field since 1987, and I know, I can assure you, Ministry of Environment and Forest has done a lot for this.
Need to be updated, and the copper need to add in that. Because we are 97% copper concentrate we are importing. This needs focus on that. Second is the most important is the critical minerals inventory. How much we have, how much demand will be there, how much projection will be there, and what is the, to formulate the policy, import policy particularly. And third is you rightly mentioned the starting, how we can work together. Yes, very important. The new FTA or upgraded CEPA between India and Korea need to sign as soon as possible. Thank you.
So I give you very short questions. So you already seen Dr. Lee's presentations. He gave us very comprehensive as well as very concrete suggestions for the cooperations between Korea and India. So how about your idea? How about your assessment of his suggestions? I would like to get your idea, your Indian side idea. Yeah.
Concerned with respect to copper, it is being discussed in the ministry. Last month also, I have mentioned that, and with a formal application to ministry, they are working on it. Something is being done. As far as Korea and India is concerned, I tell you, as KIEP is there, in India also we have got lot of research institutes under CSIR. IMT, Hindustan Copper is working with IMT Bhubaneswar, National Metallurgical Lab, Jamshedpur, and on similar lines, SCL Hindustan Copper can work with KIEP also. And we can share the data, because now the thing is that we should play with the data. If our experiments and other things are up to the mark, or you want more, so those samples should be sent to KIEP. Let them do it on their own, and then a comprehensive detailed project report can be made. And I'm talking from Hindustan Copper's point of view, we should move on. I mean, so thing is that collaboration between the institutes of Korea and Indian industries, that should be taken up as a first step.
And taking more holistic approach, Korean institutes can partner with the ANRF. They comes up with the call for proposal. Their very focused research program can be framed together. Like as Dr. Lee mentioned that like IRL is involved in the processing of monazite, and monazite is having a thorium, and processing the mineral resources with radioactive material is quite challenging. And IRL is having expertise in this, and the Korean Institute is having. Now the point comes that can we collaborate to optimize the process, use AI in those to make it more efficient so that the cost comes down. Then in India, several institutes are working on the metal to magnet pilot level projects. Rare earth corridors are coming up. That opens up an opportunity where collaboration can help in scaling those pilot projects to the commercial level. And then the recycling offers a very important opportunity to recover these critical rare earths. Like when we process the monazite or any rare earths, like bastnasite, xenotime, the major challenge is that the first few rare earths comes in a very large quantity. Like if you process the monazite, you get lanthanum and cerium in almost 75 to 76%. And as you move down the group, their abundance comes down into that processing. So if you recycle this e-waste like hard disks, mobile phones, and all, this will help in recovering those specific critical rare earths from those. So there, India is trying to do the recycling, but there is an opportunity to develop the technology which is AI-enabled, more efficient, so that the cost of the whole process comes down. Because as Abhinav was discussing about the bankable project, how you make the bankable project. Because if you announce something, if it's not economically viable, it will not go forward.
I just have one additional thing, and I think it's not it's more long-term, I think, and that's something that all countries can look at, and I think India and Korea are well positioned as well, is to look beyond just the immediate technologies and the minerals that are important. I think looking a little bit more further, looking at frontier technology development, alternative technologies, advanced materials, because I think that's where a lot of the gap is. China started doing this much earlier, hence they are where they are right now. And I think if we are constantly on the back foot and we're trying to play catch up, and I think something that we can do with our partners is obviously look beyond and go further and look at, okay, what minerals are going to be important in the next 10 years or 15 years, and what technologies are required, what are ESG compliant, environmentally friendly, what extraction technologies can we work on. So I think that's something as well.
Another point is like when Government of India is having a PLI ACC scheme to support the advanced cell manufacturing as well as the active materials. And one of the major challenge that Indian industry is facing is the equipment part. And getting equipment with the high efficiency and which can help in reducing the production scrap and all will help in a big way in making this industry more sustainable. So now with this, we close this session. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you to all speakers for the insightful presentation and discussion today. This brings us to the end of the today's forum. On behalf of the organizer, I would like to extend sincere thanks to all speakers and participants for your valuable time and contributions. We hope today's discussion have offered meaningful insight and new opportunity for collaboration between India and Korea. In the future, today's lunch will be served just outside the main hall. So please feel free to network and continue the conversation. Once again, I appreciate and wish to see you again soon. Thank you.